With Vanguard advice, no matter what your retirement goals are, they can help you get there and enjoy it for years to come. The financial journey is all yours, but you never have to take it alone. That's the value of ownership. Visit Vanguard.com and explore Vanguard advice. All investing is subject to risk. Fund shareholders own the funds that own Vanguard. Services are provided by Vanguard Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor.
Finding the perfect project manager isn't easy. But at Upwork, we found him. He's in Adelaide, between his color-coordinated sticky note collection and the cutest boxed lunch we have ever seen. And you can find him right now on Upwork.com. When the world is your workforce, finding the perfect project manager, designer, developer, or whomever you may need tends to fall right into place. Find top-rated talent who can start today on Upwork.com.
Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson. Here on the Friday evening of the show, I pushed it back today. I think you know why now, right? We're going to talk about this young man a lot. Not just today, but in the years ahead. It's Chris Parson Commitment Day, and it went exactly as we expected and as we hoped. So we're going to break that down today and talk about what it means to Mississippi State, what his game means to the air raid offense. We're going to talk a little bit about LSU. We're going to talk about maybe some things that are to come. And I got a special top 10 list for today because it's Chris Parson Day. We didn't let Chris pick the list. Maybe in the future we will. Maybe. I will share with you that we did have practice today. We're going to talk about that too. I know like sometimes that gets lost in the middle of all the excitement. It's like, hey, this is all details of a bigger story, right? He's committing to us. Games are won and lost on the recruiting trail, but they're not won at the press conference. This is like a means to a bigger end. We get an elite player to join our football program in hopes of us winning more games and then ultimately getting more elite football players. It's a cycle, right? But we did practice football today. We didn't practice long, though. And some of that, I honestly believe, nobody said this, I think the staff wanted to watch the announcement. I do, and there's video evidence of it out there. Of Leach and them on a tablet watching Chris Parson commit to Mississippi State. I don't suspect it was a surprise to anybody, but if you watch that video, and if you didn't, you can watch it over at our website, genespage.com, part of the 247 Sports Network. You can go see it. Steve Wiltfong and Wilt really did a good job for us on this. Paul Jones kind of worked behind the scenes to kind of make some arrangements here. We reached out to Steve and set this whole thing up that we could announce it live on the 247 Sports platform. I think we cut practice short for that. Now, it's not just for that, okay? I think, number one, 6 straight days of camp. You get a day off yesterday. Tomorrow afternoon is the first fall scrimmage. Probably want to give guys a chance to kind of get their legs under them. And I thought we were a little bit sluggish a little bit today, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But it's been a good week for the defense. I will say that. It's been a good week for the defense. And that's not to say that the offense has been misfiring. I think defense making plays. Like this defense a lot. So, hey, if you hadn't done so, let me encourage you. Get out and go see Bulldog Burger Company. Get out and go check them out. If you haven't been recently, you need to go. Of course, they've updated the menu just a little bit, added some things. Many of you are just maybe getting back to town. Maybe some of you students that have been out, maybe working internships or perhaps doing summer jobs or just kind of, being kids for a while. Now you're back in town. Go by and check them out. They got that new patio area here in Starkville, place you can sit outside and even bring your dog and eat outside with your dog. I'd be careful what you gave him because some of these burgers are a little bit involved, shall we say. Maybe your dog's got a cast iron stomach. I don't know. And maybe you do. But Bulldog Burger Company is the best place to go get a restaurant-quality hamburger in this part of the country. Go by and check them out. Today, have the spring rolls as your appetizer. I encourage you, as always, go make sure that you get those spring rolls because we need the world to be a more beautiful place, and it's in writing. They make you better looking. Have a great restaurant-quality burger. My favorites tend to shift. You know how it is, like if you've had the same thing for a while, like, I hadn't had this in a while. Like right now, I'm thinking the next time I go in, I'm having a Freshman 15, which was the second burger that I had. I had the Bulldog initially, which is just a good straight-ahead rock and roll hamburger, right? And I was like, you know what, this is outstanding. I said, but next time, I'm going to try something maybe a little more exotic. I encourage you to do the same. 3 great locations to choose from. University Drive here in Star Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, and the newest one, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Go by and check them out today. Get that chocolate shake to go. You'll be glad you did. All right. All right, so Roy's texting me like in the middle of as I'm recording. You know, I'm already thinking I got to get this thing done so I can go get something to eat. And I had a friend of mine say, hey, we're talking about them being somewhat finicky with food, and they're talking about how they have their ribs, and now I'm thinking I should go get some ribs somewhere. You know how that works, right? I haven't eaten much today. And what's funny about that, too, I don't want to spend any time on this because I know you guys want to talk football, but you know what's weird to me? It's like the mistakes that some people made. I'm not going to get here and have this big rant about fast food service. I appreciate those who show up for work every day. And I understand that mistakes are part of the human condition. I get it. Had a really bad experience at a fast food restaurant in town earlier this week. So I went to another place. I'm not going to mention the names because they don't pay for advertising, right? And I also don't want to be seen kind of running somebody else down. But the reality, I went to somewhere else and got what I wanted. It was fine. Wasn't exactly what I wanted. I would have gone there in the first place, right? And so today I go through a national chain, let's just say, a national fast food joint. And I said, hey, let me get 2 cheeseburgers with no onion and no pickle. And a lot of times, to be honest with you, I get the no pickle because I want to make sure I get it fresh. I don't want like a burger that's been sitting around. You know what I mean, right? I had a friend of mine who used to always want his buns steamed. That way he knew that it was fresh, which is a little weird to me. I get it. But I can't eat with onions on it. I just can't. And it's not a choice. And I laugh at these people like, I can't believe you don't like onions. Well, I can't believe you don't like Motley Crue. Right? There's a reason that we have vanilla shakes and chocolate shakes. Everybody has a preference, and that's okay. Doesn't mean one's right or wrong. I don't like onions. I didn't wake up one day and say, you know what? I think I'm done with onions. I think I'm done. It's never really got me anywhere, having these onions. So I think I'm done. It wasn't a conscious decision. I don't like them. And I don't, well, you can take them off. And I shouldn't have to take them off. I'm the customer. I ordered no onions. And even if I take them off, there is still that evil stench. There is still the juice of those onions on the bun, and I can't eat it. It makes me want to vomit. But I go order 2. I said, let me get 2 cheeseburgers, no onion, on pickle on the way to practice. I got my oil change, all that good stuff. So I got a trip tomorrow. And so I get my 2 burgers. One has no onions and no pickle. The other has both. How do you mess that up? I mean, I can understand both of them being right or both of them being wrong. But I saw the girl slip myself. So how do you make one incorrect and one correct? Again, if that's the biggest problem we have today, it's been a great day, and it has been a great day for Mississippi State. So let's talk about Chris Parson. I don't know if he likes onions or not. I suspect he doesn't. I would suspect he doesn't like onions because I think Chris is probably cool. I don't know if you know this too, and you can check me on this. I think people that put onions in potato salad probably are like psychotic. I really do. Why would you put onions in potato salad? It ruins the dish. So if you ever have me over and you say, Steve, we got some great potato salad here. Well, I'll decide if it's great depending on what the ingredients are. Do you have onions in there? I might get up and leave. I might walk off in a huff. I don't like onions. And you can't force them on me. You can't make me like them. But anyway, let's talk about Chris Parson. Enough about onions. Chris Parson, an outstanding commitment to Mississippi State. We've talked about him extensively on the show. We're going to talk about him a little bit more today. Now, the highest rated commitment in the Bulldog class of 2023 and a drawing card in many respects. Chris is a very high-profile recruit. Now, it's important to understand, too, a lot of this makes sense in hindsight, right? Chris Parson, his mother is from Starkville. His grandparents live, I think, 5 minutes away from campus. His dad graduated from Mississippi State. He had a Chad Bumpus jersey as a kid. He has grown up watching Mississippi State games, but to his credit, he kind of went his own way. He was a Florida State fan, and listen, Florida State's had some great teams, not recently, but some great teams in his lifetime. He was a Florida State fan, but he was very familiar with Mississippi State. There's a lot of connections. As a matter of fact, Paul Jones wrote an article about all the connections between Chris, his family, and Mississippi State. So it makes sense that he would have a real comfort level here. I love this get. I absolutely love Chris Parson committing to Mississippi State. If you've watched his film, and if you haven't, I encourage you to do so. You say, well, Steve, where do I find it? Just go Google Chris Parson Huddle. It's Hudl, Chris Parson Huddle. And you'll find about 8 minutes and 18 seconds worth of last year's footage. This guy is next level good. Not the biggest guy, just over 6 feet, right around 6'1". But lining up in the shotgun, he's fine. You know, he's not going to have to do all these 3- and 5-step drops behind these mammoth offensive linemen. He's going to be able to see the field. He does really well. But his release is so quick and so efficient, it's like throwing darts. And you see him drop back there, and then the next thing you know, he gets flushed out and he's on the run. And you look up, and it's like he's throwing it 50 yards downfield like it's nothing. The arm strength is there. The mobility is there. And that's the thing that I think makes this so dynamic for Mississippi State. A lot of people have been very critical of Mike Leach and say, well, you know, Mike's stubborn and set in his ways and not going to do this, not going to change that. Mike has went out and recruited a more athletic quarterback 3 consecutive classes. Chris Parson, perhaps the most athletic of those quarterbacks. When you look and see what Cliff Kingsbury has done in the air raid with a more mobile quarterback, with Aaron Murray, it's ridiculous. When you look at what Lincoln Riley has done at Oklahoma in the air raid with a more athletic quarterback, it's ridiculous. So you're seeing the old Pirate maybe place some faith in the experiences of his disciples. And I think this Chris Parson commitment shows a step in that direction. And a lot of people are like, I can't wait for him to play. Hey, we got some other guys that are going to play too, okay? It's not like Chris is just going to take over next year. Chris has got to come in, learn, develop. He'll tell you the same. He's got to learn the nuances of the scheme, got to rep it out. Guy's going to be really good. But I think when you look at what Mississippi State has put together, in the time that Mike Leach has been here, there have been 4 signing classes, counting this one. And that, yes, I get it. We haven't gone to signing day yet. But let's just say 4 recruiting cycles. And Mike Leach has landed a 4-star quarterback in each of those cycles. That's going back to KJ Costello, who was a 4-star transfer, rated the number 2 transfer prospect in the country behind JT Daniels. I know it didn't work out. It still took some tremendous recruiting effort to get the guy here. Again, it didn't work out. But it's not because we didn't evaluate him well and we didn't recruit him well. Things just didn't work out. Well, then the next year we get Daniel Greek and Sawyer Robertson. Sawyer Robertson remains the highest-rated quarterback to ever sign with Mississippi State. When Melvin Barkham committed, maybe Melvin probably would have been a 5-star, right? Years ago, back in the 70s. But and then last year we go out and get Braden Locke, who set the Texas high school record for touchdowns. And now you get Chris Parson. And so there are some quarterback windows that are open for us that have historically been closed. We're getting the level of quarterback we expected to get under Dan Mullen. That was the big thing. And listen, that is not a shot at Dan's ability to develop and cultivate a good quarterback culture at Mississippi State. But we're getting guys with a higher ceiling under Mike Leach. You know, the dual threat quarterback's very much in vogue. And Chris is not really a dual threat quarterback. There are a lot of people out there that have to have the run pass option. They have the threat of the run to kind of open up the pass. Hey, Chris can sit back there and pick you apart. Go watch the film. You'll see him talking about. But he's a guy too, when things break down, he's going to make you pay. You drop an 8, the play's slow developing or whatever, you're dropping 8, he's going to slip a guy and run for 10 yards. Run for 15 yards, run for 20. The guy is an elite athlete. I cannot overstate how big this is for Mississippi State. So let's get a little deeper into the Chris Parson profile. I don't know that all of his offers are on here, but even if they're not, got a pretty substantial list here to kind of look at, And that's the thing that I always says, I've always been a guy that's like, hey, I trust the coaches, and I do. That's not to say that I won't ever second guess. We've taken some guys in the last few years that I go back and watch their film, and I'm like, I don't know, And more times than not, they have not proven me wrong. But all that said, so a couple dozen offers here. I'll run through the highlights. I won't read them all. But, of course, Mississippi State and Florida State. He was a Florida State commitment and was committed to them forever and even took an official visit back in June. That did not alleviate his concerns about them wanting to take two quarterbacks. And ironically, now Florida State has 0 quarterback commitments. SMU was also a finalist. Arkansas offered. Cal, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisville, Miami, Oregon State, Syracuse, TCU was also a finalist. Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and Virginia Tech. So the final 4, Mississippi State, Virginia Tech, SMU, TCU. I did a little due diligence yesterday, reached out to a couple people, and everybody was here, and it was Mississippi State. And here's the thing that I have learned about that, and I've been doing this a long time, since 1997. A long time. The thing that I have learned is like when somebody else in the media that covers another school shows a little bit of confidence, it always makes me think, what is it I don't know? Why are they so confident? A lot of times it's been on the Ole Miss side of things, and that hadn't always proven to be, hard and fast rule. But, like when Yancey Porter, and I know a lot of you guys don't like him, but, when Yancey's got really, really confident about an in-state kid, it always concerned me. It always did. Not to suggest there's like any malfeasance or anything, and records will show that at times there were. But it always makes you question yourself. What is it I've overlooked? Who do I need to talk to? I want to make sure we get this right. And so when we get close to a decision, I reach out and I call people or I'll text people in the industry and say, hey, here's what are you hearing? Everybody within the last 72 hours that I have had contact with all said it was going to be Mississippi State. Either they felt that strongly or they had heard directly that it was going to be Mississippi State. And so I went to bed last night thinking, hey, I'm going to write my story tomorrow. We'll have it ready and give Paul Jones a lot of credit. Paul had already done an advanced interview with the kid. So we were kind of playing with house money a little bit. But all that said, when you get down to the day of the announcement, you're just kind of ready to get it done. I will say, I think the video of that announcement, and I'm so glad that we did it at 247 Sports. I mean, again, tip of the cap in a major way to Steve Wiltfong for taking the time and really doing a professional deal there for us. But when Parson made his announcement, the crowd absolutely erupts, and it's a packed gymnasium, and they absolutely just kind of jump all over that. And he starts clapping his hands and he starts yelling out, "Let's go." And I got chills. I went back and watched it a second, third time, got chills again. I'm talking about it now, I'm getting chills. To see a young man be that excited to join our program. And that's not to say that most of them aren't, but to have a recruit of this significance, a guy that can be a drawing card for the rest of this class, be that excited. Hey, Chris Parson, in no way acts like Mississippi State was his second choice. I think there was a plan, and it worked out probably the way that it was supposed to work out, right? I think that's the reality of it. I think in his heart, maybe he felt like he wanted to go to Florida State, and then all of a sudden some things changed. And I'm not going to say anything negative about those guys. I don't think they handled it well. But I think in the end, he was supposed to be here. He was supposed to be at Mississippi State. And I think when you see the smiles on his family's faces, because they're all there in the video. He's got his brother and his sister sitting behind him and his parents on either side of him. And when the crowd explodes, there are these very genuine and very organic smiles that pop up that just simply cannot be faked. Simply cannot be. There was joy on that stage. There was jubilation in that arena. It's our future quarterback announced, I'm going to Mississippi State. Outstanding development for this class and for the future of this program. Now, there are a couple things I want to address too while we're talking about this. And I know, listen, people are like, well, Steve sometimes gets a little bit preachy. Well, I'm fixing to preach, okay? So we'll pass around an offering plate and hum just as I am when I'm done. The day that we get a commitment from a four-star quarterback, I start reading some of these posts. Well, I'm not going to celebrate until he signs on the dotted line. Okay, cool. But why do you have to be that way? What is that? Well, this kid just went through all the trouble to set up this huge announcement. And it is streamed on a national platform to announce his decision to go to Mississippi State, and we just want to start shooting holes in it. I don't get it. I don't understand why we have some people that just they're gonna find the one little black cloud in the pure blue sky. They just are. And I've just kind of reached a point now where I'm like, I think I'm going to just kind of move on from all this. I'm not even going to address it. But the danger with that is sometimes then all of a sudden they're the only ones talking. Hey, listen, John Q, self-loathing fan, we know today is not signing day. We get it. We know there's a long time till signing day, or actually about 4 months and 2 weeks. We get it. But let me ask you this, Mr. Johnny Foulweather. Who's the last Mississippi State quarterback commitment that didn't sign with Mississippi State? When's the last one? Who is it? Can you tell me? Chances are you can't. But for some reason, we want to come out there with the wet blanket and just lay it on everybody else. And, the good thing is I think most of our fans are like, dude, just go on, okay? But please stop being that guy. Even if you think it, stop posting it. Don't tweet it. Don't be in your little Facebook groups talking that way. We're never going to advance as a program. And I mean this with as much sincerity as I can muster. We are never going to move forward as a fan base and as a program as long as this negativity among some of our people that are always forecasting failure is prevalent within the fan base. It's as simple as that. It's true. And it's one thing I'll tell you. One thing I will say that I respect about Ole Miss, and there's not much. There are bitter enemies. But one of the things that I would respect about them, even as though it's annoying many times, is whenever they get anything, in their minds, it is the best in the world. They're wrong, but in their minds, this is amazing. Look at how fortunate we are. Look at how great this is. How wonderful it is this young man chose to be a rebel, right? Like when they built their IPF. Like none of those fans had ever been in an IPF. Oh, we got the best IPF in the country. It wasn't even the best in the conference. But that's their talking point. On the other side of things, many of our fans, it doesn't matter what we do. No matter how much money we spend, how many experts we bring in to ensure efficiency, to ensure excellence, we're going to have somebody. We're going to have a handful of people. I mean, we build Duty Noble Field, right? The crown jewel of college baseball. And it wasn't open a month. We had people, I don't like it. Man, I think to myself, this isn't a Mississippi State problem. This is a you problem. So please stop involving us in your own personal levels of insecurity. Rest your insecurity somewhere else. Today is a great day for Mississippi State. Today is a great day for Mississippi State football. Today is a great day for Mike Leach. And again, it shows some innovation and a willingness to adapt. And you want to talk about what's going to get us to Atlanta? That is going to get us to Atlanta. Us being able to kind of tweak a little bit. Mike Leach is a bit of a mad scientist. And the fact that Mike's like, hey, you know what? Let me pay attention here. There's some other people out there running my scheme that grew up under my coaching tree that are having some pretty good success with a little different brand of quarterback. So maybe I should listen to that. Maybe I should look at that. And we have. And so I'm not going to let anybody rain on our parade. It is an incredible day. I'm so incredibly excited about Chris Parson. And that is in no way disrespect to any of our other quarterbacks. When you look at the depth we have in that room, it is an embarrassment of riches, unlike we have ever seen at Mississippi State. In our history. You say, but Steve, no. You can go do the math yourself. Think about what it's going to look like next year. Okay, Will Rogers was a 3-star out of high school, right? Daniel Greek was a 3-star, and I don't know what Daniel's future holds. I don't. He may decide, you know what, I'm going to hang in here, and I'm going to learn everything I can about the air raid, and I'm going to go into high school coaching someday. Maybe that's his goal. I don't know. Or maybe he decides, you know what, hey, after I got my degree, I think maybe I'll go to a smaller school and I'll play somewhere. But no matter what he does, I wish him the best. And I am very appreciative of his contributions to Mississippi State sports, even if he never takes the field. right? But let's begin to think about this quarterback room. You're going to have 4 stars in the quarterback room next year. 3, before I get too ahead of myself. You're going to have 3 4-star quarterbacks. I remember a time when we would sign a 4-star quarterback like once a decade. And you're going to have 3 on the roster next year. And then Will Rogers, a guy that was not a 4-star, one of the most prolific quarterbacks in the history of the Southeastern Conference. And so you begin to shake this thing down and you begin to look at it and you begin to realize, I don't care if it's the Pee-wees or the pros. And we've had this discussion before. The team with the better quarterback generally wins. Just look at Tom Brady. Tampa Bay was just an average team. They go win a Super Bowl together. The team with the better quarterback genuinely wins. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it generally works out that way. Like, look at last year. Look at the Egg Bowl. Matt Corral played the better game. Matt Corral had a little better help. They won. And I know it stings Will Rogers. I know it does. I know it's something that motivates him every single day that we've lost 2 Egg Bowls during his tenure. That's something you got to live with, right? But you got a chance to get 2 more, maybe more. But the reality of it is we are seeing the evolution of the quarterback room unlike anything else we've ever had. And as you get the greater quarterbacks, you start getting the better receivers. And we talk about how deep this receiver room is now, and there's some guys in there that are dudes now. Don't get me wrong. But when you start signing the Sawyer Robertsons, the Braden Locks, and the Chris Parson of the world, it shows a signal that, hey, you know what? I believe in what Mississippi State is doing. Why don't you come and join me? So wide receiver recruiting has gone pretty well. But I believe that we're going to see some doors open up for Mississippi State that maybe haven't. For years we couldn't get a wide receiver. I mean, we just simply couldn't get one. We'd have to go out and, I go back to that group we had, with Chad Bumpus and Arcito Clark and Chris Smith, and that was one of the better recruiting classes we had at receiver, and they were all in-state, outside of Bumpus for the most part, developmental guys. And Chad will tell you, he had a lot of learning to do himself, but Chad was a guy that was very explosive athlete early in his career. Matter of fact, if you recall, through the first pass of the Dan Mullen era, trying to get it out there to O'Neal Wilder. But I remember thinking how great that wide receiver class was. And if we're honest with ourselves, it was really good. It wasn't great. It was really good. Well, now I believe we can start taking some steps towards great. When you go back and you think, I remember when Tim Brewster was here, and he goes out and he signs Donald Gray as a sign-and-play guy, and he go gets De'Runye Wilson. God rest his soul. And neither of those guys were highly recruited, but we believed in our evaluation. And we kind of got those developmental guys, and they came in here and did a great job for us. And there were some guys that wanted to come play with Dak. I mean, you look at Fred Ross. I mean, Fred's a guy that obviously we had some family ties here, but, the direction of the program is really what kind of sold him, right? That's why it's so important to go win some games this year. Because all of a sudden you've got evidence, and then you say, hey, you know what? Mississippi State's trending in the right direction, and look at the guys they're bringing in. Look at the recruiting class they're putting together. People are like, oh, but Steve, we're only ranked 35 in the country. You know what? I don't even care. I believe in my own evaluations. I've been watching SEC players up close and watching film. I watch probably 100 or so highlight videos in the spring and summer alone. Not that I'm some college football expert, but I know an SEC player when I see one. And I know there's some under-recruited areas within this state. I remember Caleb Ewells. I remember Chris Wilson told me if Caleb Ewells lived in Dallas, Fort Worth, or Atlanta, he'd had 50 offers. Well, he didn't. He went to Yazoo County, Mississippi. And we were fortunate that he did, but he came here and had a really good career for us and ultimately spent some time in the National Football League. He was also rated pretty well. You remember Bernardrick McKinney? Remember him? Yeah, I'm sure you do. You know who we beat out to get him? Holmes County Community College. That's it. And you can say, well, Steve, you guys always highlight that. There's always some busts. That's true, too. That's absolutely true. There are some developmental guys that we get that don't always make a major contribution. But my point being is that there are going to be some guys out there that we're going to be excited about, and maybe they don't have a big offer sheet, and maybe they don't have a high rating. They're going to come in here and make a lot of people look stupid. Yeah, I go back to that recruiting class that we had. I can't remember what year it was, but it was the year we had Preston Smith, and I think it was the last year we had 2 stars because I finally convinced our friends when we were Scout.com, when ultimately everybody kind of followed our lead. I said, there's no reason that an SEC school should ever have a 2-star unless he's a kicker. And so now it's kind of standard in the industry. Scott Kennedy agreed with me. Jimmy Newberg agreed with me. I said, because when Mississippi State went to number 1 in the country, everybody started writing all these articles of how Preston Smith was a 2-star. Miss Dan Mullen getting it done with a bunch of 2-stars. And they really weren't 2-stars. They weren't 2-star talents. They were basically, it was basically a shot at Mississippi State. It's like, well, Mississippi State's not very good, so how good could the kid be if that's where he's going? And then all of a sudden Dan Mullen's like, that's fine. I'll just develop these guys and come in there and whip your tail. And that's exactly what he did. And so I share that because the rankings today, I think, are better than they ever have been, even though we do have some offer counters in the industry. And I see that Rivals has Chris Parson rated as a 3-star. If that's the case, okay, then that tells me the people at Rivals not paying attention. This is a kid that made the Elite 11 finals. Guy's legit. Look at the film and look at what he did. We talk about, well, there's a bunch of combine heroes out there. Yeah, look at what Chris did at Elite 11. Go look at his highlights and look at his film. I don't care what they rate him. But when Chris Parson gets the opportunity to get some college experience under his belt in this offense, provided he stays healthy and works hard, Chris Parson's going to make a lot of people look stupid. And I love there's this. There's always just sour grapes and always this and opposing fan bases. And you know what? What they think means absolutely nothing. It's just not important. And listen, when some of these teams that we don't like lose, yeah, when I'm winding down at night, I go read their message boards and watch them melt down. I do. It's fun. Right? And they do the same thing to us. But I don't care what they think about who we sign or who we commit or who we're recruiting. It makes any difference to me. None whatsoever. Why do we need their approval? I don't require it. Mike Leach offered 8 quarterbacks in this class. All 8 of them are now committed to a Power 5 program. Every single one of them. So we're clearly evaluating the right kids because the guys that Mike Leach wants, America wants. And the fact that we got a guy like this is huge for all of us. So celebrate tonight, Bulldogs. All right, time for today's top 10 list. And it's going to be interesting. Roy came up with the idea, right? And I think Roy's proud of himself. Since it's Chris Parson Day, he said, hey, let's do a Chris Parson themed top 10. And you think, well, Steve, how can you do that? I'll explain. First of all, let's thank our friend Blair Chandler. Blair is the longtime sponsor of the top 10 list and a good friend of mine, a good friend of yours. Blair is a friend in the industry. You know, getting a mortgage approved is difficult. You know, for some of us, you know, it's like, I remember the first time I did it, I was like, I never want to do this again. There's all these exhaustive questions and they ask for things you don't think they need. And, you know, it's like you need like a pint of blood, a note from your mom and like, you know, lock of your kid's first haircut. You know, it's like, there's all these things like, why are they asking for this stuff? The mortgage industry is very complicated. And, you know, we had the whole subprime mortgage bubble that burst several years ago. And so, you know, guidelines have gotten a little more restrictive. You need somebody that knows the ins and outs of the mortgage industry. And that is Blair Chandler. Visit him at his personal website, Close with Blair, which is very catchy considering he's in the mortgage industry. That's CLOSE with Blair, BLAIR.com. Or contact him directly. I'm going to give you his personal cell number. He's my friend. You're my friend. I think my friends should all be friends. Blair's number is 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. And that goes directly to him. That's his personal cell number. So if you want to text, you can. And maybe you've been turned down in the past. You say, you know what, Steve, I just don't want to get emotionally invested in this again, only to get let down. Give Blair a chance to help you. This is a guy that's been in the industry 21 years. Top 1% in the country in close ratio back-to-back years. Works for Fairway Mortgage, one of the top mortgage lenders in America, without question. So again, that's closewithblair.com. Okay, so Roy came up with the idea, and I'm kind of like Sam Kinison. He'll be like, you know, Steve, I don't know. No, give the idea to me. Give it to me. So he's like, hey, well, what if we did like, you know, a Parson list? Well, that'd be kind of difficult. So we're going to do our favorite Chris's. Now, I have a lot of favorite Chris's. I have not worked on my official Chris rankings in a long time. Maybe you have. I like Chris Farley. Right? Amazing. I'm very grateful to Christopher Columbus. There's a lot of musicians named Chris that I'm excited about too. Chris Brown didn't make my list. And I know that Chris Brown has had some issues, and I get it, and I'm kind of amazed, to be honest with you, in this cancel culture in which we live, that people hadn't really come at Chris Brown a little more than they have. Had some domestic issues, but the guy's incredibly talented. And then, of course, there's Chris Rock, who is amazing. The guy has been like one of the most celebrated comedians of my life, my entire life. Right? And I'll always know him as Pookie. Like, won't you? Those of you that know New Jack City. So I like a lot of Chris's. There was that show, Everybody Hates Chris or whatever. I don't hate a lot of Chris's. Now, Chris Elliott and Coldplay will probably never make a list of mine. I don't like Coldplay. Maybe you do, and that's okay. I don't like them. Kind of like onions. They are the onions of modern alternative rock music. I didn't choose not to like them. I just don't like them. But here are 10 Chris's that I really like. Now, some of these I had to kind of bend and twist a little bit, but we're celebrating Chris Parson Day with a top 10 list of musical Chris's, okay? Now, number 10, and I moved a couple of these back on the list because the singer's not a Chris, but we're celebrating Chris Fiend from Slipknot, who is one of the percussionists in Slipknot, been with them a long time. We're going back to the beginning. We're going Slipknot's Psychosocial. Psychosocial. You know it. Many of you know it from that viral video. The kid that kind of looked like a nerd gets up at the talent show and he's playing Psychosocial and he's like singing. It's incredible, man. I love it. I love that kid. All right, number 9. This, again, is a little bit of a stretch. But Peter Criss. I love Peter Criss. He was my second favorite member of Kiss when I was a kid. Space Ace was number 1. Gene Simmons scared me a little bit, and while I enjoyed Kiss, I was a little bit late to the Gene Simmons train because he was breathing fire and spitting blood. I thought maybe there really is something to this Knights and Satan service thing, right? But Peter Criss, I loved Peter Criss. I still love Peter Criss. But we're gonna go with the Kiss classic Deuce, right? Your man is working hard. He's worth the deuce. All right, number 8, and this is another one. Now, this has a Chris singer, and this band has actually been on a top 10 list before. But it's Chris Motionless, and I know that's a stage name, and I don't care. I love this band, Motionless in White. Probably one of their best singles is Reincarnate. I think you'll dig it. It is more of a modern industrial sound, so it's not the classic rock of Kiss. This is going to be a pretty diverse list. And speaking of diversity, here we go, number 7. Going back to the 1970s. We couldn't put a list of great Chris's together without including Christopher Cross. So Christopher Cross, we're going to go Ride Like the Wind. Chris, that's for you too, Chris Parson. Let's roll. Let's get it done. Christopher Cross, Ride Like the Wind. And Chris Cross, of course, he was supposed to play. He was the featured act at Pnumanium, if you know Seinfeld. Supposedly. He was booked for the Millennium Party. I don't know if he ever showed. But Christopher Cross had a string of hits in the 70s. The guy was an incredible musician. Number 6, and many of you don't know Chris Jericho the way that I know. I've met Chris Jericho. Maybe you have. Maybe you haven't. I have met Chris Jericho at a Fozzy show. Really nice guy. Even signed an autograph for my kid that I brought home that we had framed for him. He was the AEW champ. They were out with Fozzy. I dig Fozzy. Now, my buddy Sam Denton was kind of into Fozzy a little more than I was, and he was telling me all these deep tracks. Oh, this is a great song. So by the time I got there to the Fozzy show, I was like, man, they got to play all these songs. Pull up set list, sure enough they did. But we're going to go with Judas. Judas from Fozzy is number 6 on your list. Number 5, I got to work in a little country. And how could we have a list about musical Chris's without mentioning Chris Stapleton? Love Chris Stapleton. And I'll be honest with you, I learned about Chris kind of the old-fashioned way. I was out shooting pool one night and a song came on. I'm like, oh, who is this? So I whip out my phone. Hey, Siri, who sings this song? It turns out it was Chris Stapleton. The song was Parachute. I was hooked from that point forward. And I love Chris Stapleton. He is a true outlaw country guy and an incredible guitar player. There were a lot of people, and I'm going to hurt some feelings, and that's okay because I'm going to tell the truth right here. There were a lot of people in old school country that couldn't play guitar. It's true. They could play the same 2 or 3 chord progressions, and that was basically it. And then they covered it up and had somebody play the steel guitar because they couldn't play guitar. Chris Stapleton can shred. Now, he's not Yngwie Malmsteen, but that guy is an incredible guitar player. And I love watching the videos, like when you guys go to the Brandon Amphitheater. One day I'm going to go watch Chris Stapleton play too. I love Chris's music. But we went with Broken Halos, and we'll give that to our friends at Florida State. Number 5, Chris Stapleton, Broken Halos. All right, number 4, I had to kind of bend and twist a little bit here too. And I will be seeing this band in November at the Lander Center, opening up for Judas Priest. The best show I have ever seen in my life, without question, and I have seen a ton of them, was Queensryche and Suicidal Tendencies in Jackson. Many of you were there with me. We didn't know each other then, but we shared a moment, and I think everybody would agree that Queensryche show was unlike anything I'd ever seen. I'm going to see him again, different singer. I'm a little worried about that, but Chris DeGarmo is one of my favorite guitar players, as is Michael Wilton. I love the dual lead that Queensryche has done so successfully for many years. But I'm not going to go with Operation Mindcrime. Even, I'm going to tell you this, if you're ever traveling, you just want something cool to listen to, maybe you know a few of the singles, put on that Operation Mindcrime album, just put on hit play, because it is a concept album, there's a story, and the music matches, there's so much stuff that goes through. It is phenomenal. I listen to it all the time. I probably listen to the album in its entirety at least once a month. It still holds up. And a lot of it's because of the axe work of Michael Wilton and Chris DeGarmo. So we're going to go with Empire from Queensryche. Empire. And that's, this is when Jeff kind of grew his hair out a little bit. So, all right, number 3, you may disagree. One of my favorite Chris's is Chris Daughtry. He is my favorite all-time American Idol contestant. I used to watch that show every year. I thought it was wonderful. Watch it with my kids. And everybody loved Chris. Everybody did. I thought this guy's got a chance to make it. None of us could wait back in the MySpace days for Daughtry to release the first single. And they did. And it's like every page you went to on your MySpace friends list, everybody had this as their song. And it's Not Over from Chris Daughtry's band, Daughtry's. That's number 3 on the list. Shout out to Chris. Number 2, I love this band from the very first note. The very first time that I heard the song Jealous Again, I was like, this is unlike anything my generation has ever seen. And remember, I grew up in the 80s. We were getting beat to death by Hairspray and things like that. And thrash music was coming along. And all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, the Black Crowes, they just dropped right in. Like they'd been there all along, with an old school vibe, with new school attitude. And I loved them. And it's a shame I didn't get to see them last time, because you never know when Chris and Rich are going to get mad at each other and stop touring together. But I want to go with Twice as Hard. Chris Parson committed twice. I imagine the second time it was a more difficult decision initially, because you're turning your back on what at one time you thought was your dream. So, Chris, let's make them jealous again, buddy. All right, number 1. And if you know me, you're no surprise that my favorite Chris is Chris Otis. No, it's really not. Chris Otis is the guy I went to school with. I love Chris. But it's Chris Cornell. Matter of fact, my left lower leg sleeve is all Chris Cornell stuff. It's all Soundgarden, Audio Slave, some portraits of Chris. I'm very, very pleased with the work. And so my favorite Chris is Chris Cornell. And so we're going to honor all these Chris's as we celebrate Chris Parson today. Our Soundgarden song today is Outshined. And I just felt like it just kind of fit the motif today. Could go in a lot of different directions here, but we're going Outshined because maybe we were looking Florida, but now we're feeling Mississippi, to pardon the pun there. So that's top 10 list. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out and let us know. The best way to do that is to hit Roy up on Twitter at Dogmatic67. That's DAWGMATIC 67. If you hit me up, I'll try to remember to share it with him, but sometimes I get distracted. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I do. So Roy will have the list together. Matter of fact, he sent me a list. We were trying to figure out what we were going to do today, and then we decided to do this. And he sent me some that have been writing a list for a while. I'm like, you know what? Hey, we need to do that. I can't believe we hadn't done that. And so there are a couple of, there's a classic rock band, and then there is a kind of a classic rock singer that we have done one of his bands before. So we're going to do those next week. We can get 2 of our 3 next week. We'll knock those out. I think you'll enjoy those. We hadn't had a great week, I'll be honest with you, on our notifications, on our expressions, on our Spotify list. And I have learned my lesson about the old school jam thing. I guess you guys have kind of evolved and moved on and say, Steve, if you're still listening to Ready for the World, you loser, we're not going to support that. But here we are. So hopefully you enjoy us celebrating Chris today. We celebrate Chris on Chris Parson Day. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by your friends at Campus Book Mart. I love Campus Book Mart. You love Campus Book Mart, and if you don't, you certainly should. Nobody out there has got more Mississippi State merchandise to choose from than Campus Book Mart. The Bully Shop recently renovated. It's now upstairs. A lot more to choose from. I'm amazed at the selection there. Went by there recently. Miss Kathy said, hey, can you come by the store? I did. I was amazed. Spent some money while I was there. Bought a couple of gifts. You've got Mississippi State fans in your life, obviously. So support them and celebrate your friendship or your familyhood with a new gift from Campus Book Mart. If you can't make it to town, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any order less than $50, absolutely. Hey guys, let me ask you a question. Do you ever have trouble kind of, completing an outfit? You got a nice shirt, you got a nice pair of pants, maybe some shoes, but you think, you know what, something's missing? Let me tell you where you can find the best in men's accessories. It's Trend Him. Go to trnd.hm/boneyard and save 15% off the latest in men's accessories. And what's cool about it too is it's not just like, bracelets and watches. And even though I recently ordered a really cool watch, and you can have a personal image on the watch. So I got the dog pile cover on the watch. So I'm going to have a watch that's got to cover one of my books. And so hopefully it becomes a family heirloom. Let me encourage you, go peruse through their over 6,500 items today at trnd.hm. Again, /boneyard to save 15% off your order. They got these amazing leather travel bags. I'm going to get one of those because I like to travel in style. A lot of times, I just need a good quality duffel bag or perhaps a travel bag. Go check out their fine selections today. That's trnd.hm /boneyard.
With Vanguard Advice, no matter what your retirement goals are, they can help you get there and enjoy it for years to come. The financial journey is all yours, but you never have to take it alone. That's the value of ownership. Visit Vanguard.com and explore Vanguard Advice. All investing is subject to risk. Fund shareholders own the funds that own Vanguard. Services are provided by Vanguard Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor.
Incomplete. All right. We did have practice today, and it was rather abbreviated. And again, I think it's because we wanted to kind of get our legs under us a little bit as we got got involved with things. Tomorrow, the first fall scrimmage. Now, a couple guys still in yellow jerseys. We're going to be smart with that. Randy Charlton's one of them. I guess is going to be a big part of things for us. In a yellow jersey today. J.P. Purvis has been in yellow a little bit this week. Earlier this week, we had 5 guys, I guess, either in the pit or in yellow jerseys. That's getting better. So thus far, and again, knock on wood, if there's some around you, so far State's been healthy. And that's going to be key for us. We have some depth, but we don't want to have to test that depth. We like our frontline players to be able to play. I remember last year, when Jordan Davis went down in the fall scrimmage. It's just one of those things, man. It's just that just blows me away. It's like, here's a guy in the prime of his life, and this is freak injury, and he's done for the year. He's back. I believe he's been able to kind of trust the injury a little bit more. And I won't be there tomorrow, but we will have full coverage over at genespage.com. Dave Murray, Paul Jones. I think Robbie will be there So we'll have some observations. We'll have some comment about the scrimmage once it's over, and you'll be able to kind of see all that tomorrow on genespage.com. So today, though, was a little different. I didn't think we appeared to be quite as focused, and I think Mike Leach saw that as well. We did some up downs. Jason Washington said earlier this week, we're going to lead the country in up downs. And so when guys don't do what they're supposed to do, they got to do up downs. So Leach got the entire team together. He got out in the center, and the entire team circled up and did up downs. And he spoke with some bass in his voice by getting focused and getting ready to go and stop wasting time in practice. And I thought we were a little bit sharper after that. There were some up downs later too, but not team-wide. But Mike is an old school coach, and he believes in accountability. A lot of people see him up there at the podium and they think, he's kind of like that lovable favorite uncle. And he is in many respects. But he very much believes in holding people to a standard. And if we're not getting the level of play we want in practice, Mike's going to stop practice. And there was a time last year he started to practice over. We're out there, we're just kind of going through the motions. See, I'll tell you what, let's just start it over. How about that? I respect it. I did think Will Rogers looked good today. I think Will's having a really, really good camp. And as I've mentioned the leadership piece with you guys too, but, to me, Will simply looks to be more confident. He knows what he's doing. He's got a couple years in the system now. People forget, 2 years ago, we're going through fall camp, right, which was delayed because of the COVID quarantine. Will Rogers won the number 2 job as a true freshman. Now, some of that, of course, is because Will Rogers was kind of handpicked by Mike Leach. Even though he signed with Joe Moorhead, Leach recruited him to Washington State. Obviously, hey, the Gardner Minshew gamble paid off in a huge way. So let's go back down there. Let's go get the guy that is playing for the guy that helped develop Gardner Minshew at Brandon High School in Wyatt Rogers. And so you go get that guy, then Mike obviously inherits him. And I remember the very first time that I met Will Rogers, I thought, this kid's never coming here. It's just not going to happen. Grew up in an Ole Miss family, grew up cheering for the Rebels against us in the Egg Bowl. But I tell you this, I give Will a lot of credit. He handled the recruiting process in a very mature manner. And I remember talking to Joe, after signing day. I said, Joe, I'm not going to lie to you. There were some times I really wondered, especially with Ole Miss making a coaching change, because I thought Will probably fit what Lane Kiffin wanted to do very well. I knew Matt Corral did. People forget Matt Corral nearly transferred. John Rice Plumlee fit what Rich Rod wanted to do, and I thought, well, you know what? Lane Kiffin's going to have more of a pass-first scheme. They may come after Will Rogers, and because of the fact that he's got some connections to that program historically, we might be in trouble. Joe told me he never doubted it. He said, man, the family was just so solid. And not just solid in the commitment, but solid as people, where their word meant something. And so Joe goes and gets him. And who knew? And to be honest with you, I don't know that Will was the perfect fit for the Joe scheme. Because there is the running component in the scheme. I think Will was a perfect fit for the air raid. But Will's having a good camp. And one of the reasons Will's having such a good camp is because you got some receivers around him that know what they're doing. 2 years ago, many of our receivers were seeing zone coverage for the first time in their playing careers. We've just touched about that on the show before, too. When Dan Mullen was here, and to a certain extent Joe Moorhead, you had to stop the run. You had to focus the run, especially with your safety. So you would walk guys up, and you would basically dare Mississippi State to throw it. And kind of going back to that wide receiver recruiting, we had recruited some solid wide receivers. We didn't have a lot of game breakers. And so not only did they not know how to handle zone coverage, they had never really seen it. And now all of a sudden, it's like we've taught them how to uncover and to find green grass, to throw people open. We're doing that with some great consistency. I don't think we're going to see a lot of man coverage this year. I do think one of the things that can help us with that is if everybody's going to drop 8, we can gash them a little more with the running game. I've been really impressed with the running backs. We talked about Simeon Price earlier. Jason Washington spoke about Simeon this evening in our media opportunity. That's something you can go watch and you can read in its entirety. over at genespage.com, a free article. I just feel that our running backs have grown up. People forget, back in 2020, we kind of threw Woody Marks and Dylan Johnson to the wolves because we didn't have a lot of other opportunities. Colin Hill, and I love Colin Hill. I do. The guy's an incredible player. Things just didn't mesh the way we'd hoped they did. And I remember hearing shortly after Mike got here, he goes, Colin may not survive spring practice. He gets injured against Arkansas, and the next thing you know, we're having to depend on two freshmen. And that's still a game we should have won. That's 2 consecutive years we've lost to those guys in games we should have won. And I'm sure they're thinking, well, we're just a better program than Mississippi State. And I think that line of thinking is going to be huge this year for Mississippi State. The next thing you know, Colin opts out after the Kentucky game. And so you got 2 true freshmen, and Woody Marks as a freshman could not make anybody miss in space. Woody Marks could not run through that first tackle. Last year you saw a much more physical presence from Woody Marks. You see him now? I can't wait for you guys to see him now. You talk about advancement. You talk about improvement. You talk about a guy that is bigger, faster, stronger, and wiser, understanding his role in the scheme. And I don't think there are going to be a lot of DBs that want to square him up in the open field. I think you're going to hope you can usher him out of bounds. Dylan Johnson back at practice the last few days. Of course, Dylan Jr. He has a son now. And ironically, born on the same day as my son, Ani, August 8th. It's a special day, which means he's probably an athlete, right? No, seriously, Dylan's another guy that has really matured. Dylan's a guy, too, that has gotten a little more elusive. You saw that last year, but watching him in camp, he's another guy, too. He gets his pad squared to the line of scrimmage. He catches the ball, gets upfield rather quickly. And so, again, incrementally, I think you're going to see some improvement from both of those guys. And then, of course, Bull, Hargrove, and Simeon Price add some different dimensions. And Hargrove had a difficult practice earlier this week. Been a little better since then. That's young guys. There's going to be some up and down in practice. Just is. And Simeon Price, I think that is a weapon we've needed. I had somebody tell me he's more of a true air raid running back. And so when you see him, I think you're going to kind of understand. He is a guy I suspect in a foot race would beat Woody and DJ. I don't know if he'd beat Bull. But that's a guy, too, you flip it out there to him in space because he does have a little wiggle and he's got some burst that he can turn that short gain into a chunk play. I've seen it all week. This week, he has been outstanding. Last year in fall camp, he's kind of guessing a little bit. He's been outstanding this week. It's like the lights come on for him. He's like, okay, now I'm healthy again. Let's go. Really excited about him. Some of these younger receivers, too, we haven't talked a lot about them. Xavier Thomas made some big plays early in camp, and he has been a pretty consistent performer. I do think that he is a guy that'll play for Mississippi State a lot. Does he play a lot this year? I don't know if I'm ready for that just yet. But that's a guy, too, that we're really excited about as we kind of move forward, thinking about the Mississippi State future. Now, one of the guys that continues to kind of flash in practice, and I will do a Friday flash report at some point before I go to bed tonight over at Gene's page, but is Janoris Hobson. The guy has really, really looked good. Now, a lot of those freshmen sometimes are scared to get physical, right? I mean, you don't know how hard you got to go in practice. You don't know, kind of where you are and kind of how things settle. Janoris Hobson has not really shown anybody any respect in that respect. When it's time to get out there and go, this guy brings a very physical brand of football. I won't be surprised if he plays this year. Now, of course, you get 4 games to play him and preserve a red shirt. But Hop is a guy, they call him Hop. Hop is a guy that'll get out there and get next to you. When they're throwing the bubble underneath and he's the outside blocker, he's going to seal you outside. I mean, I've seen it day in and day out. I've seen him go down and make some difficult catches. One thing I'll say about these 4 new receivers, these guys have come out there and kind of demanded to be seen. Now, Marquez Dortch, they call him Mojo. I'm giving you guys the insider trading here. Supposedly documented as the fastest player on our team. Needs to get in the weight room, get a little bit stronger, but the guy is very, very explosive. Now, you remember this whole thing with State and Ole Miss. He committed. He was supposed to be MJ Daniels, and he wanted to go together. And so he commits to Ole Miss, and then State stays on him, and we get him. And there was the rub about, hey, we think he's a DB, and then our folks thought he was a receiver. After watching him in practice for a few days, I think he could play either one. I think his heart is in wide receiver, and I love seeing him get the ball in the jet sweep. I mean, that guy comes in motion, they give it to him. It's like as soon as you get that block, when the tackle blocks down, it's like as soon as he sees it, he just explodes. And then it's becoming a foot race. And then you better be able to hem him up. If not, he's going to make you look awfully silly because he's going to win the foot race to the end zone. If you miss the tackle, it's 6. He's an explosive player. And again, I don't know how much he plays this year, but it bodes well for the Bulldog future. Caden Pope's done some nice things too. Another kid that needs to get in the weight room. But I like this entire group. I really, really do. I really like the entire group, and I think it's a group we can get excited about. We talk about wide receiver recruiting and what it all means. I think that's evidence that we're doing a good job evaluating. We talk about our transfer guys. And again, Jordan Mosley looks like a guy that's been here all along. I really like Jordan Mosley. Again, they call him Jomo, not to be confused with Jim Moorhead. But it's like he's been here all along. He doesn't look the least bit hesitant. It's like he understands his role in the scheme. He understands what's expected of him. He made a catch today right around the goal line, then powered through the DB into the end zone. Probably catches it at the 2, initial contact, made it the 1, and then he wins that leg drive battle and gets into the end zone. And then next thing I know, Austin Williams is coming up. Let's go, 8. Let's go. Let's get it done. These newcomers, Justin Robinson and Jordan Mosley, they're going to make you immediately better. So basically, in many respects, you're kind of looking at this. You kind of traded Mekhi Polk and Malik Heath, as talented as they are, for Jordan Mosley and Justin Robinson. So if they can match that level of production, it's going to be huge. But again, I think you're going to do it by committee. And I think Justin Robinson, he has trimmed up some since the spring. That's a guy, too, when he's running around out there in a pass pattern, you're going to be excited about. Another guy, explosive. Another guy that's a big target with a very lengthy catch radius. This wide receiver group's going to be good. And it's like you said with Steve, I'm hearing about all these guys. You hadn't even talked about Wiley. You hadn't talked about Austin Williams. You hadn't talked about Tulu. You hadn't talked about Rufus. That's kind of the point I'm making. Is those guys are known commodities. And I think Rufus Harvey is having the best camp of his Bulldog career. Again, not the biggest guy. A guy that gets open, a guy that catches football. Is he a guy that's going to win out in the open field? I don't know about that. But I know this. I know that he gets in and out of his break so quickly that he doesn't need a really big passing window. He creates a nice one because he is so quick and so fleet of foot. But I'm excited about this group. Dollar Bill Johnson, I thought, had a really good camp on Wednesday. Didn't get a chance to watch a whole lot of team stuff today, but here's what I did notice. And these are the things that stick out to me. It's kind of like if I don't notice you on the offensive line, you're probably doing a good job. Because if I notice you, it means you likely got beat. I didn't see a ton of pressure coming off that left side today. And I think Dollar Bill is a guy that's kind of settling in and finding some confidence. I think I shared with you guys too, like he spent the offseason kind of on his own, working with trainers, doing some additional work to get better. I mean, it's time, right? This is his time to shine. He's played up and down the line. There's some times that he struggled with holding, right? There's some times he struggled with even temper, kind of pushes and shoves a little bit. He's got some nasty with him. If we can find a way to kind of make that some controlled aggression, right? Let's avoid the silly penalty. Move your feet. And that was really the thing last year with him, is we weren't moving our feet. Well, left tackle, you have to. When you're playing guard, sometimes you get beat inside. You kind of grab and hold because it's close quarters. I think Dollar Bill probably benefits from being out there with a little more room to operate. The guy's a natural athlete. Even as big as he is, the guy has great footwork. I mean, he's posted videos of him dancing on Twitter. He can do it. It's just a matter of getting him to trust his technique. And so, again, I feel good about that offensive line. That's really the only question on offense, right? And that's the thing I tell you guys. Like, what if I told you that we're going to be good at left tackle? We're not going to be great, not going to be elite. We're going to be good. And if you heard that, you would say, you know what, hey, if that's true, we're going to be good. And we are. We're going to be a good team. And I have people that are like, oh, there's this and there's that. It's like we're just trying to like go ahead and kind of beat ourselves to the punch just so we can come back later and kind of lay the groundwork and say, oh, I told y'all. What a terrible way to go through life, man. It's okay to be hopeful. And again, we're, 7 practices into this thing now? And I keep waiting, for the bad practice. And today wasn't a great practice, but it wasn't a bad practice. There were still some shining moments today. And I think that's an important thing to remember. We're starting to get some consistent work in. Consistently putting in good reps. Consistently putting in good, measured work at our positions. You got guys that are getting bigger. You got guys that are getting stronger. You're getting guys that get more experience. Now, it's still a bit of a melting pot, right? I mean, we got to get out there and see how they're going to perform when you're playing against somebody that's not their friends, when somebody that's trying to hurt them. Now, flip over to the defensive side of the football here. I can't say enough about the defensive front. We're really good up front. And like in talking to some of our coaches, kind of off the cuff a little bit, our offensive coaches will tell you this is a really good defensive front, which of course prepares us for the league. We're going to see guys with this level of experience and talent throughout the conference schedule. And so I think it makes it a little easier to make the adjustment now. We play the non-conference schedule for a reason, to kind of get up to speed. I think we're going to be closer to SEC speed much earlier in the season this year because of the quality of the defensive line that your offensive line is facing every day in drills. And it gets contentious sometimes too. The defense will make a play, talk a little trash, offense will come back and kind of get even. And I love it. I do. But I love this defensive group. The front, we're going to be difficult to run on. Now, there'll be some people at times that'll run some traps and they'll run some trick plays and things like that, and they may gash us every once in a while. But as far as somebody lining up and consistently making a living running the football against this front, I just don't see it. I think people are going to have to be balanced. They're going to have to use some play action stuff, and that's where I look at games like this Kentucky game. That offense is predicated on the ability to establish the run and then implement play action off of it. Well, if you can't run the football, that play action means nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then that's the wide receiver group that doesn't have the explosiveness they had a year ago. Again, it's not a good matchup for them. Now, I think Bookie Watson has hit another level at linebacker. I mean, every time I turn around, he's fitting the gap, making a physical play. All the time. And it is so commonplace, it's not even sometimes worth noting. Sometimes all of a sudden you see a big play, like, hey, who was that? And you look, oh, that's so-and-so. When Bookie Watson does it, it's just kind of like, okay, let's just go again. The guy has consistently become a great player. People forget, he put him out there that freshman year, and I think the very first time he played, I guess, was Georgia, led the team in tackles. Bookie Watson is another one of those guys that doesn't accept, well, this is just kind of how things are. Mississippi State's supposed to lose this game. I mean, I think Bookie Watson's like, no, we're as good as these guys. We can go play. We can play with these guys. But watching how explosive that he is now, because first year he was kind of guessing a little bit, kind of getting by on athleticism. You can tell now, watching him work with Matt Brock, that he understands where he's supposed to be. And that's not to say that every time that that he's always right. I mean, he gets some correction like everybody else. But he is consistently making plays in team drills, consistently. I don't think I've heard yet of him getting yelled at for being out of position, where he's overrun a play, where he didn't read his key. I don't think I've heard that yet. Now, granted, there's a lot going on out there. Don't get me wrong. It's not like we're all just sitting there watching the same practice field. You got multiple practice fields, and then they kind of cut one of them into two sides, and there's so you got to kind of move around to see all this. But Bookie Watson's always getting called doing the right thing. Jet still being Jet. I feel really good about this first-team linebacker group. And, again, I think Deshaun Page kind of getting back and kind of getting acclimated, that's going to be big for us too. Still a little bit worried about depth. A little bit worried about depth there. Now, I've told you guys, too, about how impressed I am with Jackie Matthews. This is another guy, too, that I think he is one of the fastest guys on defense And playing safety, you kind of have to be. But he also has the ball skills to go with it. Every time the ball approaches, he engages and either breaks it up, picks it off. That's really, really good. And it was kind of an unheralded announcement. You know, when we got him from West Virginia, people were like, okay, yay, okay, West Virginia. This guy is a converted corner playing safety. So he already has the ability to play the football out in the pass pattern. But again, a week into this thing, we talk about having difference makers on defense. That guy's a difference maker. That guy's a really good player. Of course, Colin Duncan's out there. Jalen Green's out there. I mean, the athleticism is there. Marcus Banks continues to flash, and I love his practice habits. And maybe that's something that he brought with him to Alabama, or maybe it's something he picked up in Tuscaloosa. The kid practices really, really hard. Really hard. And we talked at length last year. We just didn't have any dogs in the secondary, especially at safety. I mean, you knew what you had with Martin and Forbes, right? But we didn't have those guys that really made people think twice about crossing the face of the safety. We didn't have people that would make you pay, that if your ball placement was a little bit sloppy, throwing down the field, that we could make you play. We just didn't have the ball skills. I think we do now. I think with these additions, and speaking of additions, Jordan Morant had a couple of huge hits today out in the flats. He diagnoses a play and he gets down there, and that's a guy too. He didn't have the benefit of the Bulldog spring. He just got here this summer. But now he's starting to flash a little bit, and that's encouraging too. It tells me, number one, not only do we do a good job recruiting, we did a good job evaluating to fit a team need. There's a lot of people out there, they go get a bunch of transfers, and it's like, okay, well then we'll kind of make a football team out of these guys. You know, we already had a football roster together. We had a couple needs. We met most of them. We would love to have had another offensive tackle, right? I mean, we'd been able to get like a seasoned offensive tackle. That would have been great. That's probably the only like glaring thing you look back. We did get Stephen Lasoya, who was kind of slid inside and played some at guard and center, and he's doing okay. He is. But we'd like to have been able to get another starter, a tackle, to kind of shake some things out. We didn't. But we have hit, I believe, on these receivers and these defensive backs. And that's the thing. We had this discussion yesterday. Somebody's like, oh, we did this. We did, we missed on this. Let's not forget about all the things we did right. You go get Justin Robinson, you get Jordan Mosley. Guys that are very, very loud in practice. You got Jackie Matthews. You got Marcus Banks. You got Jordan Morant. Those guys were all four-star players. I mean, those are things I think sometimes we dwell so much on maybe the issues that maybe we didn't do as well as we'd like, and we forget about the things we did really well on. And so I just point that out because I have been impressed with what I've seen in practice. And I would tell you, if I hadn't been, am I still a little concerned? The two concerns kind of still persist for me, which is, can Dollar Bill handle it at left tackle? I feel a little bit better 8 days into this, but until we line up and go play an actual opponent, I'm not going to know for sure. But I'm more encouraged this week than maybe I was last week. Linebackers, hey, I love our first team group. I'm still a little bit concerned. Again, Deshaun Page had a good couple days. That makes me feel better. Ty Cooper had a really good day on Wednesday. Had a couple sacks, kind of in relief of Tyrus Wheat. So seeing those guys flash a little bit begin to make me think, okay, hey, can I get a dozen snaps out of this guy a game? Can I get 20 snaps a game out of this guy? Yeah, maybe so. But by the time we get to the end of camp, we need to have some assurances that, yes, Dollar Bill can handle offensive tackle, and yes, we've got a serviceable two deep that can make plays in the event we have to put those guys in. And I think Matt Brock's done a good job too, and the players seem to really like him. But it wouldn't be practice if Arnett wasn't out there, barking at people and kind of, hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's get going, get off the field. One of the things that irritates him is when guys are just jogging onto the field, like when it's time to change the unit out. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, this group has gotten their period in. He doesn't like people to jog on the field. He wants you to take the field ready to play. And so that's something, again, I think is important. But, again, defense at times last year I think kind of got a pass because we were so inconsistent on offense. But I think we have done a good job addressing those needs defensively. And I'm excited for all of us to see these guys play defense. And you should be too. All right, time for the final segment of the show brought to you by our friends at Portico. I've told you guys before, if I was moving to Starkville now, I would move to Portico. I'd love to be that close to campus. And it's not too close to campus where you can't have a little privacy. It's 1.1 miles away from campus. Tucked away off of 82. You turn off 82 on a 12. You take that first right. You've always wondered where that road leads. Well, it leads to Portico. You take that right on Pat Station Road, go through the four-way stop, boom, there's Portico. Your new neighbors are already there enjoying life, already doing it. Phase 1 completely sold out. Phase 2 under construction and for sale. And there's also some other lots, too, that maybe you're thinking, hey, I've got to have certain things so you can have a say in the building plans and the lot. A lot of options for you now. Let me encourage you. Call my friend Brooks Bryan. I love Brooks. Great dude, man. And Brooks, part of a great group, bringing this wonderful residential development to Starkville to make it a better place to live. 601-416-8075. 601-416-8075. And the thing I think about, too, is even if you're not a huge sports fan, like if you work at the university, what better way to be that close? 1.1 miles away. Outstanding. Make Portico your next move. All right, time for another SEC West and Mississippi State opponent preview. It's LSU. We're going alphabetically here, if I can continue to remember my ABCs. We're doing LSU today. And so, of course, a coaching change. Ed Orgeron's gone. Nobody's really shocked by that. But he's done. And a lot of crazy stories have come out about Ed since then. But, Ed and him win that final game and get bowl eligible. And him and his girlfriend head down to the Gulf Coast and say, you know what, I'm done with all this. I won't be surprised if he doesn't resurface for some TV, because Ed's an entertaining guy, really is. But he got a nice chunk of change to leave. A lot of money being spent in the post-COVID era on some of these buyouts. But let's take a quick look back at last year. They open up and lose on the road at UCLA, and I think that's when everybody realized, you know what, LSU was in trouble. They are in trouble, and UCLA absolutely picked that secondary apart. They played McNeese the next week and win 34-7, but it was still a tussle until basically LSU's athleticism took over in the second half. I think people forget that. It was not, it ends up being a 34-7 game. I think LSU fans were expecting to go in there and beat them 65-0. Didn't quite work out that way. The next week, pretty solid win here, actually. Central Michigan was playing well at the time. We thought they might be able to exploit that LSU secondary. They just couldn't stop LSU. 49-21 win for the Tigers. And then they come to Mississippi State with a 2-1 record. And we were optimistic about the game. And, of course, again, our self-loathing fans that are scared of their shadow. Oh, man, Ed Orgeron said he'd been working on Mississippi State all year. Okay, great. Still got to go play the game. And this is a game, in hindsight, I think we all agree we should have won this game. We didn't. We lose 28-25. But I think we played them well enough that we felt like, you know what, it's not going to sap our confidence. But I will say this. We had to make kind of a hurried run in the fourth quarter to make this game as close as it was. There was some separation in this game, much of it through our own ineptitude. You remember we kind of climbed back in the game, and then Rodney Gross gets that leaping penalty that was completely ridiculous. We're back in the game, and then they get a first down and go right down and score. And basically, that was the difference in the game. You say, well, it never comes down to one play. In reality, if we just don't leap right there, we get the ball back. We had all the momentum, and we're getting the ball back. It's probably a different ball game. But instead, we make a stupid penalty, give them a first down, they go down and score and push ahead 2 scores. And, we were behind the 8 ball at that point. Had to make that hurried comeback in the fourth quarter to make it look decent. We just couldn't finish. All right, so then all of a sudden they're feeling good because they've had this great game plan they worked on, for a year to beat us, and they beat us by 3. And then Auburn goes into Tiger Stadium. And I can't remember where we were. We're getting ready to cover a ball game. But Bo Nix was doing whatever he wanted to do. Absolutely just slicing those guys up. Auburn wins that game 24-19, and at the time it seemed like a really significant victory. You're thinking, you know what, Auburn's for real. They didn't prove to be. All right, the next week they go to Kentucky, and I thought LSU would maybe bounce back a little bit, because they've got a good running game. They should have some athletes in the secondary. And Kentucky absolutely shoved them, 42-21. I think, in hindsight, this may have been the best Kentucky played all year. Honest to goodness. Will Levis was great. And LSU always think about linebackers. It's incredible to me to think that LSU defensively would give up 42 points to a team like Kentucky that's not necessarily an explosive offense. All right, the next week, just when it seems all is lost, and the Tigers are 3-3, they host Florida. And this is when the wheels really came off for Florida. LSU runs for a school record in this game. Absolutely just beat them up. It was a very entertaining game if you didn't have a rooting interest, right? I mean, I was at Campus Bookmark watching this game with Stan the Man during the book signing. And every time you looked up, somebody else is in the end zone. It was a phenomenal game. And these last 2 years, the LSU-Florida game has been outstanding. This one is one that I'm sure the Florida fans are still going to be, smarting about for a while. All right, so they get that dub. Now they're 4-3. They go to Vaught-Hemingway, and I picked LSU to win this game. I thought, okay, LSU with their running game and Ole Miss's anemic run defense, that this should work out. It didn't. Give Ole Miss some credit. The LSU had some juice and some momentum. Ole Miss protects the home turf. It was actually a pretty good ball game. Ole Miss puts them away late. But LSU, again, offensively, it just kind of disappeared. They get the week off, and then you think, okay, all is lost here. They're 4-4. There's all this discussion, of course, about Ed Orgeron's future. They go to Bryant-Denny and nearly beat the Crimson Tide. When you talk about, Heckle and Hyde type, Jekyll and Hyde type deal, 20-14, and LSU played hard. It's like they didn't play well defensively against Florida. They didn't play well defensively against Ole Miss, but somehow they go to Bryant-Denny Stadium. I don't know what they did during the bye week, but they were born again hard down the stretch. They lose Arkansas, 16-13 in overtime, a game they should have won. We talk about Arkansas in many respects. Hey, you win the close ball games because the woulda, shoulda, couldas will get you nowhere in life. But LSU defensively again plays really good. The next week, they play UL Monroe, rested some guys, and nearly cost them. They win 27-14. Not that the Warhawks are a real challenge, but defensively, LSU pretty good in this ball game. And then they beat A&M. And remember, that's become such a wild game at the end of the year. Remember they had the Big 7 overtime game, whatever it was a few years ago? Absolutely ridiculous. A&M wins because of a blown call. 27-24, and Ed Orgeron, leaves with his hands held high. They have reached bowl eligibility. They were 4-6 with 2 games to play. They win the last 2, and then they go play Kansas State in the Texas Bowl with basically nothing. They had a bunch of guys opt out. They could have just said, you know what, we're done. They didn't have a quarterback. They took a guy that was a quarterback in high school, and they built an offense around him. And I give those kids credit for representing themselves and their families and their program and the pride of that program, despite the fact that they were outgunned. And Kansas State ran all over them. They win 42-20. But I cannot in any way say anything negative about those kids. I said, you know what, hey, let's go play anyway. We're LSU. Kind of like our situation, too. We had a bunch of kids out with COVID and injury, went and played the game. We got beat. But you should never just say, hey, well, we're not going to play because we might lose. And I respect those kids. I do. And I respect there are a lot of other people that canceled games because of pride or ego or whatever. That just wasn't the case for LSU, and I commend them for it. All right, let's take a quick look at kind of what LSU's got coming back. And of course, a big change. Some change in offensive philosophy, too. But LSU's always had athletes. Brian Kelly, it'll be interesting to see. I'm glad we get him early, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But LSU is a national brand. They're going to recruit at a national level. Is Nussmeier the future? I think that's one of those things. I think this is where I think Brian Kelly benefits. You've got a guy with a nice pedigree, but I think in the brand of offense they want to run, which is a little bit different than what LSU ran. I think it's a little more quarterback friendly. I don't think Nussmeier will have to take quite as much, punishment. Being a runner out there. It's interesting too. Since LSU won an AFL championship, they're 11-12 since then. Pretty crazy stuff. All right, so there's a lot going on, right? with this team. Miles Brennan is still there. Does he win the job? Does Nussmeier win the job? Jaden Daniels, of course, some competition in the room. They have gotten some good options at quarterback for a group that didn't have anything to play a bowl game with, right? You had to get a reserve receiver to play in the bowl game. But all of a sudden, you look at this depth chart and you think, you know what? Hey, Walker Howard's there too. You've got the makings of a good quarterback room. So I suspect quarterback play will improve, and it helps when you got Kayshon Boutte out there, who is absolutely phenomenal. Got hurt against us. Nobody saw the full LSU the rest of the year after us. If we had played them later in the year, that's probably a W. Should have been a W anyway. But Boutte elects to come back. So we'll see what happens. There's just not a lot of offensive skill that's returning. You look at and say, hey, this guy's scary. Boutte makes everybody nervous. But LSU, and to give Ed Orgeron credit, they've always recruited to skill positions pretty well. They're not some known commodities there. And, of course, Deion Smith leaves, and he's now in junior college. We'll kind of see how things progress. But there will be some new names. There always are. Offensive line, they got some work to do here as well. We'll see kind of how that works. But I think this LSU offense will probably find some juice later. Got to find some playmakers. Got to settle the offensive line. Who's going to be running back? Is John Emery sat out last year despite all the lawsuit stuff and that kind of stuff. And you remember how crazy that was? It was something, there was somebody keyed in a course wrong. It was something that happened, and he was ineligible because of something they did, not anything he did. He didn't take enough courses or whatever and didn't meet degree progress requirements or whatever. So it's no fault of his, based on the reports, obviously. But maybe he comes back. And he was a guy that was expected to come to Mississippi State and goes to LSU. Maybe he's underachieved, right? I think that's a fair assessment. All right, defensively, LSU's LSU. Is always, always, always going to be linebacker friendly in their schemes. They're going to go from the traditional 4-3 cover 2, because Orgeron always wanted 4-down linemen because he's a deep line coach. They're going with a 3-man front mostly this year, and you've got the amazing B.J. Ojulari that's back. Ali Gay came back, which was kind of unexpected, and then these linebackers are going to be good. They just are. They always seem to be. Of course, Mike Jones, Mike Jones is back. The secondary may be a little bit dicey, but like Mississippi State, LSU had to go out there and work the portal a little bit hard. Of course, Derek Stingley's gone, and they went out and got Greg Brooks Jr. from Arkansas and Joe Fouché, and Joe Fouché has killed us. Greg Brooks had a pick 6 against us too. I'm not a huge Greg Brooks fan. I know a lot of other people are, but they have worked this portal hard, and could there be some communication issues when you play a team like Mississippi State? And again, this is why I'm glad we get them early. I remember Sylvester Croom liked to play them first just to get it over with. But I think our best chance to beat them is early. Now, let's run through the schedule in the final moments we have together before we get out of here. They open up in New Orleans against Florida State. I think that's going to be awfully interesting. That's a Sunday game, so we'll be able to watch our game, and then come home and enjoy that. It's Labor Day weekend, too. How much fun that is. And so that's a Florida State game. Who knows? This is two teams with a lot of question marks. But that could be a launching pad for somebody and then a stumbling block for the next one. The next week, they play the Southern Jaguars. And it's good to see them play the crosstown team. Like kind of how I feel about us playing Jackson State and Alcorn. If you're going to spend that money to pay a FCS school, do it to an in-state school, and it benefits your state. So they'll probably be able to rest some guys before they play us, right? So Mississippi State in Tiger Stadium, week number 3. I'm going to go with LSU winning the Florida State game and winning Southern. I think both State and LSU will be 2-0 going into that game. Now, they lose to Florida State, who knows? But I think they're 2-0 going in. And, again, I don't know that they're going to have the secondary communication stuff down yet. And so I think we'll be able to go out there and really kind of get after them a little bit. And so I think it's a competitive game. That said, I think we lose. I would love to win this game. It would be huge, kind of set up the rest of the schedule really well for us. But we have taken some really good teams down to Tiger Stadium and come home with a loss. The main thing we have to do is get to the half within a score. We can't let that 91,000 crowd kind of take over the ball game. All right, the next week they play New Mexico, and so that's a W. Then they go to Jordan-Hare, which is, I never know. But you begin to look at this and you think, okay, let's say they get through Florida State and Mississippi State. These guys could be sitting 5-0, heading into the bulk of the schedule in October. Can we win? Yes. Will we win? I don't know. Can LSU win at Auburn? I would say probably so. I think that Auburn team is going to be is going to struggle this year. And then LSU plays Tennessee in Baton Rouge. I got Tennessee winning this thing. I think offensively there's going to be too much for LSU. And then LSU goes to Florida. I got the Gators winning that game too. So all of a sudden you've got this great start. You've got the mid-season malaise, and then they welcome Ole Miss into Baton Rouge, but prior to the bye week. I think LSU can win that game. I do. I think Ole Miss, this is going to kind of start the second half swoon for them. I think Ole Miss gets off to a great start, and if they don't, they're in really big trouble because the second half of that schedule is loaded. After LSU beats Ole Miss, they got the bye week. They play Alabama in Tiger Stadium. That's a loss, but I suspect they'll play well. And then they got to go to Arkansas. And that's interesting too, right? What does that defense do against KJ Jefferson? They should have won the game last year. They didn't, but now you got to go on the road. Razorback Stadium is a fun place to play. And then UAB, that's a win. And then you got to go to College Station. I think that's probably a loss. So let's run it down again. Let's say they win the first 5 and then lose Tennessee and Florida, lose to Alabama. They're 5-3. I got them losing at A&M too. So they're probably going 7-5, 8-4. It could be worse, but I think with the talent they have available, even in year one, they'll be bowl eligible and probably be a game or two over. But this is a team too. If they don't get a couple breaks, they could be 6-6. They could be staring 6-6 right in the face. But again, they're going to have talent. They're going to have talent, and talent wins in this league. And everybody's got talent, but I just think LSU is probably one of the premier destinations from a recruiting standpoint. So that's kind of how I see it. Maybe you disagree. I think they've got a lot to settle. I think LSU has a ton of questions, and I would much rather play them earlier before they get it figured out. And we're kind of right smack dab in the middle of it. If this game was in Starkville, I would pick State to win. I consider it a toss-up down there just because you just never know how we're going to handle 91,000. We say, well, Steve, we handled 88,000 pretty good at College Station. Yes, we did. And my hope is the benefit from that experience will serve us well. We take on the Tigers. All right, that's it for today, man. Again, let's celebrate Chris Day responsibly. Hope that you guys get some cowbells, have a good time with that. If you hadn't done so, go to dogpilebook.com and get all my sports books there. You can get signed copies. And matter of fact, just notified Lemuria Books got a new stock of Dogpile, the newest printing. So if you're looking for that, you can find it there. We're all over the state. We're at Turn Row Books. I was in there yesterday and met with them. So if you got questions and you want to go by to your local bookstore, you can do that. They can get it for you. If not, you can go to dogpilebook.com. You get Alpha Dog, Stark Villains, Flim Flam, and at Dogpile. If you're looking for Bloomsville Leander, find it at Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksAMillion.com. And if you're looking for shirts, and I'm getting a lot of questions about it again, go to StarkVillains.com, and you can get it. If you live locally, you can get it in your high school colors. How cool is that? You can go to the Starkville High School Yellow Jackets game wearing a black and gold Stark Villains shirt. How cool is that? Go check it out today. That's it. We'll see you on Monday. Until next time, though, let's live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.
Finding the perfect developer isn't easy. But at Upwork, we found her. She's in Prague, between the ideal cup of coffee and a truly impressive synthesizer collection. And you can find her right now on Upwork.com. When the world is your workforce, finding the perfect project manager, designer, developer, or whomever you may need tends to fall right into place. Find top-rated talent who can start today on Upwork.com.
With Vanguard Advice, no matter what your retirement goals are, they can help you get there and enjoy it for years to come. The financial journey is all yours, but you never have to take it alone. That's the value of ownership. Visit Vanguard.com and explore Vanguard Advice. All investing is subject to risk. Fund shareholders own the funds that own Vanguard. Services are provided by Vanguard Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor.